Alright then guys, so welcome to another episode of OOP with that. So in our last video, we created a nice constructor and instantiated an object. So in this video, we are going to look at access modifiers. So remember in our last video, the constructor was given some error, so we had to modify our variables with something late. So late is an access modifier, though not in the way we would expect it to be. So late here is just telling that oh, hold on, I know this is empty, but we will put something in it some later time. Okay, so that's what the late keyword does. But when we are creating objects for real world applications, we don't want anybody to instantiate or just mess around with our properties, our methods on the objects anyhow. So to prevent this, we use access modifiers. Now we have public access modifiers, we have private access modifiers, we have final, we have static. So for a typical constructor, we use the final. So we say final string name. So we are basically going to change everything that is late to final. Now immediately we change everything to final, we get this error back. So we are going to use this constructor type. We are not changing anything, but we are using everything we can get here. So this dot name, this dot color, this dot shape, this dot size. So I can say this dot name dot is empty, and it should throw this error. So this dot shape dot is empty. Okay, so this dot color dot is empty, then this dot size, this dot size. Okay, so now I can get rid of all of this. And the reason is this automatically is handled by that, so we don't need to reassign them again. So we get this to error. So I think the positioning of this also counts. So name, color, shape, and size. Okay, so it has to be name, shape, color, and size. So I just have to switch these two. Then our constructor is good to go. So everything functions as it should. So if I leave this as an empty document and do this and run the program, I should get the same error. So this value cannot be empty. Okay, so invalid arguments, the value cannot be empty. So I just have to return everything back to its normal state. Alright, so final, what final is doing here is final prevents these properties. Okay, so these properties to be initialized initialized anywhere outside the constructor. So if we don't initialize them in the constructor, we can't initialize them anywhere else. And that's a typical procedure of a generic object. Okay, you don't create a separate function to initialize your objects with different names for you. The constructor is supposed to create your object, assign the appropriate values to the appropriate variables, and then check for any errors that you have specified. Okay, so that is one access modifier. Okay, so in that, we don't have a keyword. We don't normally use a keyword for private, but we don't want other people to also directly access and modify our properties on the object. So to do that, we start the variable names with an underscore. So I'm going to change everything here to underscore, then the property name will come. So I have to do the same for these variables as well. Okay, so once I've changed all of those, if I'm in the same file, then I can access this. However, this becomes a problem when I'm not in the same file. So I'm just going to create a new file and call it orange.dat. And I'm going to cut all the orange class. I'm going to cut everything and paste it here. And when I come here now, I don't know what orange is. Okay, so I can import it by saying import, then I'll say orange.dat. Okay, so I've imported the orange class from here, but I'm not getting anything. This error continues to be here, and then when you hover on it, says the getter underscore name isn't defined for the type orange. Try importing the library defines the incorrect name, some other stuff. Okay, you can't access this directly. However, if I change this to orange dot, I can get cow with it. So almost every object will have the dot to string and no such method on it, but we don't concern ourselves with it. So we can say it. Okay. Okay, so since it has its own print, I'm just going to remove this and then run the code. Then I get yummy. Okay, so to avoid direct contact with these properties, you can start with an underscore, which signifies a private variable in that. Okay, so if you want, we can say export default. Okay, so what if you want to create a function but we don't want people to access it in say our front-end code. Maybe it's a back-end program, we don't want people to access it, or a programmer to access it in our front-end or in the development environment. Then we can use the static keyword. So static is going to make it available only in the class. Okay, so we can create a function, say void get weight. Okay, which is just going to print out, say, this dot size times this dot size. Okay, but we are not going to get this, so I'm just going to pass in, say, the get values. Okay, so I'm just going to initialize a variable, say final double, then make it private and call it weight. Okay, then here I can say this. Okay, I don't want it to be part of the constructor. Okay, so I can make it a static. Okay, so what if you want to create a function on our object that will not be accessible to the programmer or the user of this function, of this class? Then we can use the static keyword. So for example, we want to calculate the weight. So we say static, then double, because we are going to return a double. Then instead of printing this, we say return, then we say size times size. Okay, so when we have this and we come down here to say orange dot, we don't get the cow weight again. It's no more available to us. So what we can do is, if we can only get access to the cow weight inside our class or our object. So instead of, when we say get weight, instead of saying print this, I'm just going to say print, and I will say cow weight, and I'll pass this dot size. Okay, so this function is available to us. You can decide to remove the void. By default is void, so I can remove all this void. But if I want it to be accessible only in my object, then I add a static keyword to it. So static is used for objects, and it's like an object in an object. So static for methods, and then underscore for variable names. Okay, so this time around we will have only access to it and get weight. Okay, so now I can say orange dot get weight, and if I run this, I get this. Okay, all right, so that's it for access modifiers. There's still a lot you can read on your own. I'll leave a link to the documentation of these concepts in the link. I'll leave a link in the description below. Be sure to check it out so you understand, you get a broader view of how things work with the access modifiers. Alright, with that said, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to support this channel. See you in another video.